Okay, thank you for coming and listening to another episode of Fearless, Inspired, and Free. I am your host, Dana Wright, and today I have the most amazing guest. Her name is Aprill Edwards. I'm just going to get right into it because I think that once we get started, there'll be so much to talk about. So I don't want to waste any time. Aprill is a transformation coach who helps women lose the physical, mental, and emotional weight holding them back from living their best, most bold, most intentional life. And I hope you guys got that. She is the SHE.E.O of Because She Matters, whose mission is to equip and empower women and girls, primarily of color, by helping them get healthy, happy, healed, and whole from a whole person perspective. So, Aprill has a variety of programs, products, and services, but she helps women identify and overcome obstacles in their lives that are holding them back from living their most fulfilled life, a life that is soulfully aligned. And I love that. So, I highlighted that soulfully aligned, full of power and purpose. She helps them break generational curses, broken mindsets, and learn patterns of behavior that keep them playing small in some areas of life instead of fully launching into a life that they may only dream about today. If you are not intrigued by that string of sentences, then I don't know what you're intrigued by because I cannot wait to kind of get into some of these words. They're so powerful. And I think what Aprill has figured out that words are powerful and she uses them in her bio. She uses not only her education, professional certifications, and experience, but she also considers her most qualified, um, herself most qualified, because she's a certified overcomer of the very issues she serves and supports other women today. From attempted suicide, teen pregnancy, emotional and physical abuse, toxic relationships, bankruptcy, and the death of her mother when she was only 13 years old, Aprill's resilience, determination, and life experiences allow her to serve others in a way uncommon to most transformational leaders. She is, and I always find this very inspirational in itself when my women guests list their credentials, because so many times women do not want to list their credentials. They don't want to, tell people what they have and who they are and just how great they are. So I love my platform because I get to tell everyone how great they are and just how much they have poured into themselves. So Aprill holds an MBA in business from National Louis University. She is a certified life and success coach. She is a certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor and has multiple certifications in nutrition. She's a certified transformation coach, a certified diversity inclusion specialist, and certified program manager. But that isn't enough for Aprill. And we're going to find out how Aprill fits everything in because Aprill also serves her community in various capacity um, with Advancing Indie Women Leadership Program, Big Brother and Sister, Youth Leadership, Powered Up Youth Inc. And the one I'm most intrigued about is PJ's Meals on Wheels. And I think, is that your son's name?
Yes.
I thought so. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn more about that. She's once was or still is. She'll let us know noontime Toastmasters club president. So I have just gone through a whole list of things that Aprill embodies and presents on her social media platforms and everything she does. And when I reached out to Aprill was because I told her energy jumped out to me on her page. I'm always intrigued by all of the things that she's doing. I love the tricks that she can do with her social media page. I'm always so intrigued by those folks who are technically savvy and so that she grabs my attention and she grabs a lot of people's attention in a lot of ways. And then I told her that her smile lights up a room, and it really does. And in the morning or in the afternoon, if I kind of jump on my page, I always enjoy seeing her smile and her energy. So Aprill, let's start off by telling everybody, let's read this sentence here. Um, Through your programs and services, you help women identify and overcome obstacles in their lives, so that they can live a life that's soulfully aligned, full of power and purpose. You help them break generational curses and broken mindsets. You establish with them what their learned patterns and behaviors are, and you help them kind of tweak those a bit, recognize them, and live their life more fully. Like, how did you come to be this transformational mindset coach?
Yeah, great question. A couple things. So, first of all, my gift and my curse is that I absolutely love to like learn. I'm like a complete nerd when it comes to that. So, I'm always taking some course. Like, if anything is interesting to me, then I jump all the way in it. The reason I became, a personal trainer and a nutrition specialist is because, yes, I had my own struggles with weight, but also my son was an athlete. And so I wanted to know how to feed him. I wanted to know, you know, I got to have my hands in everything. So I'm just one of those people who enjoys learning and understanding things. And so I actually, all of this whole Because She Matters business was birthed from me. So, like, I am my client. I am the woman that I serve, specifically because it's like I'm serving to myself. So, when I can use powerful words, because those words speak, when you were reading that, like, I felt that in my soul, right? Because those are words that came from my experience. And through when I first started working with women, through it really came through personal training, right? So I wanted to help women lose weight. And then quickly, so I was in a gym. So I was a group fitness instructor, personal trainer, nutrition specialist. But what I constantly recognize is that women were just like, all the women were really just like me, right? Most of us, we can Google anywhere and find out how to lose weight, right? Information overload. Everything that you want to know, you can go on YouTube, Google, it's out there. So it's not a lack of information for women. It's oftentimes just really, like my shirt says, putting me first. Um, Recognizing the importance of not just chasing the outer things, but really taking care of our inner selves, because we're taught to be strong. We're taught to achieve. We're taught to go, go, go. And so we become conditioned to that. And part of that is just society, right? It's the images that we've been shown, that the image of superwoman, I call it the superwoman syndrome, because that's how I was raised. I was raised to achieve and to go and to take care of everyone else. I mean, my mom died when I was 13, and I will never, ever forget this. I was at the hospital when my mom died. Like, we were there, she had cancer and they had the cold blue. And so I was at the hospital when they came back in the room and told us that she passed. And I remember going home at 13 years old, and I got out my mama's phone book and I started calling and letting everybody know that my mom had passed. It just felt like what I was supposed to do. And I remember my best friend Antoinette, she said to me, she was like, "You weird." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "You're calling people, your mom just died." Like, she was like, she literally called me weird. That stuck with me all these years. And I really didn't understand it until much later in my life, like really in the last 10 years, I realized how much of the trauma in my life I just repressed because I had to keep going, right? So I had more things to do. It was always something. And so there was never a time when I took time to process. I was too busy achieving and learning and doing. And eventually that became toxic, right? We can only pile so much in before some of it's going to come out. And I went through a series of years when that's just what happened. My toxicity, I'm a praying woman. So I would be praying and fasting and like, oh, yeah, check this off the list. I'm good here. I feel good about this. And I'm moving on to something else. And if so, you feel good, right? I thought I was in a good space. I was happy. I had many things to be happy about. And then it was like, I went through a period of my life where I became someone else. Um, to this day, when I think about some of those things, like, I'm like, was that really me? Like, I literally, um, I didn't like, looking back on some of the things I did or said, I just don't even recognize or identify that person. But that was a person who had just got to that rock bottom and they broke. And so my thinking became I just became toxic.
So do you think, so going back to your story about how you were 13, you lost your mom, and the first way you thought to react was to inform others and to make sure that things were taken care of, that maybe at that time you neglected to grieve the way maybe people wanted you to grieve, or the way you should have grieved for your mom, or acknowledged, how you felt. And so starting from there, do you think that because that was the starting point, you learned to suppress throughout your life, and that led to toxicity and the buildup in you being someone other than really the person that was inside? Like, how do you make that connection, that you figured out that you had all this toxicity and you didn't recognize the person you were? How did you come to be that? And when did you recognize?
So I first started recognizing that I had repressed trauma during the time when I broke, right? So it really came when I first started my health and wellness business online. So I got out of the gym because I was like, no, I want to help women with the real issue, right? People, I don't want to help women just chase numbers on the scale. And that's how I got here. I just remember that was the initial question about that whole phase. So really, I didn't want to just help women on the scale. I wanted to get to the root, because a lot of women who are just like me, we have a lot of emotional baggage, and that emotional baggage shows up, through stress, because we're burying so many things, right? We wear all these layers of life, and inside we got we're overweight, we're unhealthy, we got broken dreams, bad relationship, trauma, drama, all this stuff is on the inside. And so I wanted to serve women in that way, because I started counseling back then and I had been dealing with me. And so I thought I'd check that box, right? I thought I was in a great place, and I went and got certified to be a life coach and success coach, and I was ready to serve other women. But as I was working with women through their issues, I believe that it also stirred up things within me that weren't healed yet, because that's when the toxicity in me arose. And I really feel that it was just through serving other women that I realized there were some more layers. I didn't realize until after the rock bottom phase, but after that, I realized there were some more layers that I had to really shed to be in a healthy space. So it was more by force than by choice. Like I came to this rock bottom place where I was so broken at that time that like I couldn't even pray. Like I used to just sit there like, Holy Spirit, intercede for me. Like I was that weak that I didn't have a voice, right? I have affirmations, they're on my walls everywhere, but I have them laminated. So it's just I couldn't even read them, right? I used to just hold them.
Mm.
And but I would always just have faith, though. It's just that it just was not connecting at the time. So it was really by force, but just really humbling myself and just really seeking God. I was not talking to people. I had to get on medication for depression. Like I moved to a new state, and I just disappeared. And that is my way of handling things, is that, I'm not the person that, maybe while I'm going through things, I'm not the person that's going to run to a bunch of people or put stuff on social media. You're going to see me disappear, because that's my way of handling. I will be seeking God in prayer, praying, fasting, writing, processing, trying to understand. And that's the phase I went through. And eventually, it took a while, the dots started connecting. I started therapy. And it was a slow process of revelation for me, though, because I was angry for so long.
Yeah. And for the listeners, if you don't mind, talking through this process, some of the things you described may really have struck a chord with someone listening today. And, the anger, the repression, the trauma, but can you say, because, people find, or people feel like there's shame in admitting that you're having trouble, or admitting that something happened to you that what you had no control of, or, something that causes the trauma. were you able to dig and only go as far as you'd like to go, but were you able to dig and really get to the root of what that was? Or is there something to share with the listeners that maybe they can say, oh, okay, I need to address this, or these are some things I need to address too, because you use the terms that you had trauma, that you had depression, and you went to counseling and you had some medication to kind of help you with the depression. But were you able to really get to the root cause and understand why you had to go through this process for our listeners?
Yeah, I learned so much about myself in the last probably 5 or 6 years, and it's been like I'll get these layers peeled, and then I'll be on coast of here, and then it's like this new layer of revelation for myself. But what I now understand, um, so much so that I'm very territorial about, or have like these strong boundaries when people trigger this in me, because now I'm fighting for what I should be, what I deserve to be, right? So I lacked self-esteem. I never ever knew that because I was always popular and I always had a lot of friends. But doing some work, like, and I think that many women have low self-esteem. I'm just going to be honest with you, right? I believe that that's the things that lead us to be in unhealthy relationships. Many women have issues with codependency. And I'm, for anybody listening, I'm not trying to attach anything to you that does not belong to you.
Sure.
However, I'm speaking to those who feel that, and yes, they just kind of keep it under wraps, that, it's way more common than you think. In fact, when Gabrielle Union was on Red Table Talk with Jada Pickett, I loved the fact that she opened up and said that she was trying to tear Jada down because she had issues. She was
Hmm.
jealous. She had low self-esteem. And if women of that, nature, right, that people celebrate and think that they got it going on, can admit like she was looking at somebody else feeling intimidated and having self-esteem issues, like it's very common. And for me, I can trace it back. I have very low self-esteem. I never thought I was the pretty one. Like I thought that like I had to settle for to get love, right? So I was in unhealthy relationships. I look back at it and I feel like I was like, pick me, pick me. And that's
Hmm.
that's 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 hurtful, right? To look and see what I allowed because I did not know better. Do you understand? Like I did
Yeah.
not know, because who taught me? My mother was gone, right? And
Yes.
so I had women in my life, but nobody was my teacher. And I'm just honest with that. And it's not their fault. Have always had a strong personality. So maybe I had this barrier up that didn't allow anyone to have that relationship with me, but I didn't get it. Like I figured out what love was on my own. My dad was a truck driver. He never said I love you, but he loved me. Like I have no doubt that he loved me, but that wasn't how he expressed emotion. So I had no idea how somebody was supposed to treat me. You know what I mean?
And that's
No, nobody
significant.
taught me. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so significant. And I think I had another guest, I can't remember which one, where we talked about that, where, our parents, our grandparents kind of showed love differently than sometimes you might need. And so you go out to seek that validation, or you try to get that validation, or you just lack it for your life, because in their minds, they gave you love the way they know how. And that's why some of these, new books like your love language and things like that is so significant now, because what they're finding out is that people need different things in different ways.
Mhm.
And I think what's significant about what you said is that so many things is, you didn't have the woman figures that would tell you how to, how to be a woman, or, what you deserve. Maybe they backed off because you were so strong-willed and your personality was strong. But you went out and you had to learn on your own. But then you also said, boom, the barriers went up. So it's hard for someone to penetrate and get in and get close to you and tell you too. Tell me if you agree. It's hard to get people to penetrate through that and tell you what your worth, because you don't even let them in from the get-go. And sometimes I feel like I've heard from people, and even myself, where people try to tell me something good about me, and I'll be like, okay, moving on. You don't want to hear that, because, oh, now you got a little close, you touched the chord, you know me a little bit too well, and I need to put my shield back up. you
Mhm.
know and
Mhm.
so, you know when did you know it was okay to allow some people in, and when did you know it was okay to kind of ease that barrier, so that one, not just what you were learning on your own, but two, someone could reciprocate and really get to know April
Mm-hmm.
and be a part of April's life.
I think that I went through a major humbling in the past 5 or 6 years because since I was a little girl, if they didn't teach me anything else, they taught me I was smart. From the time I was a little girl, like I was always smart, won all the awards, and so I probably say people probably thought I was a know-it-all, right? Adults, especially, you don't have time to be arguing with nobody who think they know everything. And so I think that a lot of times people may not have given me what I needed because of how I came off. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that me recognizing that was major. So like it was just a major humbling for me, a major look in the mirror, and that was difficult because not so much that I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. It's just that I never really knew her. And so there were so many things that I didn't know about myself, that about worth, things that taught me worth other than, yeah, I was smart. You know what I mean? And so I led with that most of my life and settled in so many other areas. But the know-it-all in me made me make a lot of bad decisions because I wasn't humble enough to go and ask folks, for advice. I would just go, well, I could figure everything out because I'm smart. Made so many decisions wrong, stayed in so many toxic and bad situations because I didn't want to say I was wrong. I just wanted to be right, and be right costed me in so many ways. I made a terrible financial decisions. I lost a full scholarship to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I was pregnant in high school and hid it, just so many things because I just knew everything and could nobody tell me anything. And that's why I love to share my story. That's why I love, I have a strong desire and understand the importance of mentoring, because if I had a mentor,
Mhm.
um, life could have been so different. And I think about that sometimes. But instead, I was just like doing, oh, okay, that didn't work. No matter what it cost me, I would just do it. That didn't work, I would pivot. And that didn't work, and pivot. But I made the journey, right, like this, when it could
Right.
have been so much simpler and the road was so rocky. A lot of it I felt like was me. I've learned to give myself grace now because I didn't know, and so that's been difficult for me, is releasing it as giving myself grace to know, child, you just didn't know. Like you were a little girl, you were just looking and searching for something that you didn't have, and that's okay, let it go. But I still chastise, like I still have shame and guilt, two big things that I think many people operate under, and it's something I've projected onto my kids. And so I talk to them a lot about that now, because I don't want them to have those kind of, like, they're doing things for out of guilt or out of fear or shame. I don't want them to operate any those broken mindsets, like
Sure.
no way, shape, or form, And so as I learn and grow, I love to share my story, just because it's so amazing to me how powerful the mind is. It's so amazing to me how the things that we learn from a little kid become so embedded and guide us in ways that we don't even recognize. And then
Sure.
we become a product. And people are like, you can't be shackled to your past. Absolutely. But at the same time, you are your past, right? You are a culmination of the things that happen through life. You don't have to let that dictate your power, your future. Well, you can, but just not in a negative way, right? Because
Right.
my future is very much so tied to my past. It's the thing that I take with me and I share. It's the thing that helps me want to be a better parent. It's the thing that helps me keep waking up and fighting and doing 20 things, every day, juggling so much, because I still have something to prove to April. You understand? And I still
And
have
that's
kids
important. Yeah.
that I want them to see. People are like, oh, you have great kids. My daughter's a pharmacist. My son's going to basketball, Division I basketball player. But I'm here with them every day, right? So people always say, oh, your kids are amazing, but they don't know how much I've, in many ways, damaged them. Now, that's a big heavy word,
Sure.
but it's the little things that make a big difference, right? And so, I'm still waking up every day better in myself because I talk to my kids about everything, right? Like we have wisdom conversations, mindset conversations, we talk about, we identify, we look at other people's situation, we look at our own, and we just talk through life because I don't want to just drop on them what was dropped on me and let them figure it out later on, right? And so,
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes as parents, we try to shield. And I think what you're doing is being very transparent about your walk, your life, so that they can look at that and maybe take pieces from it. I know being a parent myself, early on, I tried to guide them and tell them, you got to do it like this. You got them.
mhm.
And then I got this epiphany like, okay, why don't you can share what happened to you can share things that have worked, but ultimately they have to make that decision, and you are now trying to put things on them that were the very things that were obstacles in your life, instead of letting them expand and grow and just kind of showing them. But I mean, at what point, going back, because you said so much about your discovery and kind of talked us through how you kind of got to this place, but what kind of things outside of counseling, for the listeners who are listening to your story? Okay, depression. Okay, young mom. Okay, just not asking for help, not letting people know that I don't know everything. All of these things that I know people are hearing and saying, oh my God. So you at some point said, I looked in the mirror, and it wasn't that I didn't like that what I saw. It was that I didn't even know that person. And so you began your journey right there to kind of try to learn who you were, open up. You began your counseling. What other things did you do that? Counseling, did you then incorporate your education? Did you then find that exercise made you feel better? What did you do? And along with that counseling, that kind of pushed you forward to kind of open you up to help you to get to where you are today?
That's an amazing question. And I'm gonna say the corny answers that people think, right? When I say them, it's gonna sound like those textbook answers. But man, let me tell you, in order to heal, you got to deal, right? And so you have to be willing to do the work. And for me, there were a number of things. First of all, when they talk about slow down and be present, listen, when you slow down and when you're present, everything changes. For me, one of the things, one of the ways I started becoming present, and it was so powerful to me, is on my treadmill. It
Mm.
it got to where, like, that was when I was hearing from God. I would get off the treadmill sometimes and go run and write stuff down, because it was just like, it was a moment when my mind was quieted. And that's really, and I meditate, but honestly, to me, I get more insight on that treadmill than even I do with meditating. But just slowing down and being present was so huge for me, right? And then in journaling, I cannot say enough about journaling. And yes, there's an art to journaling, right? Because people are like, well, I don't know what to write about, but I did a lot of like prompted guided journaling that allowed me to like dig deep, but then also not, it wasn't the kind of journaling that you just write it all out. Now you feel just terrible about yourself, right? So it's very guided to where it made me go deep and explore some things, but also took me on a journey of discovery and healing and getting to the other side. So it's very purposeful journaling, just really learning to study my word in a different way, because that's another, when I talk about learned behaviors and patterns, a lot of things, I think that this has happened in a lot of Black families, our relatives raised in church, but I felt like some of the things, the ways that I was taught the Bible was very in a way of with condemnation. And so it made me grow up with this, if you this, then that.
And
Like,
this very rigid.
yes, very rigid.
Yeah.
And it gave me a broken perspective of God and relationship. And it made me live in fear. Like, it was like it was like always waiting for the shoe to drop. And I
Mm-hmm.
was on a conference call in 2020. This was like one of the most powerful things that I couldn't wait to share this with like people. But I was on this call with this girl and she was like, well, how do you see God? Okay, great question. And she was like, so what you're saying is that God would, so you have a God that wants to see you broke, or you have a God that would dangle something in front of you like, oh, PJ's about to get the scholarship, and then, oops, psych. Like, do you think that that's the nature of God? That he
Right,
would be
right,
like, here you go, good job. And they'd be like, oop, you can't have that, right?
right.
But that's the way you're taught, like, if you do this, then this, like this whole that's condemnation. But it
Sure.
was the most amazing small connection somebody made. And it was like, God don't even operate like that. Like he's not dangling my future. And if I do the one wrong thing, but those are the kind of things that I was taught. And so just relearning and studying for myself and understanding a whole different nature of God, a whole different nature of what abundance is in the life that he truly has. And it's okay to want to be debt free. It's okay to want to create these things. Because I have a lot of people right now will tell me, well, make sure now I'm about to start my business now, or things are going this way. They'll just, I have an aunt, love her to death, but she'll be like, well, you just better make sure you better make sure you do. But it's that whole, it's like putting you in this fear. And I literally have strong boundaries with that now, because don't put
Ooh.
that on me. Like, do not project. I know you don't mean any harm and I love you, but I don't receive any of that.
Strong boundaries.
I have strong.
And isn't it hard? It's hard because people make you feel bad for having a boundary, or, oh, that the old April wouldn't do that. Well, this is not the old April. Like
You
this.
had us that.
I have to set a boundary for my own health. And I like that you said that you had to relearn, break down some of the old ways so that you could rebuild yourself and not live. It's like you didn't say it. This is my words. Fear. You said that, that's condemnation. I call it fear. Like you
Mhm.
literally would be scared to like say, do, go outside, color outside of the lines. Cause you're like, oh Lord, now God might, snatch it all away from me. You know what I mean? When
Yes.
he's a loving God, and God will guide you and help you. And I have to laugh because you said on the treadmills where you hear the voice and where you get the most present time. And people are always searching for meditation, being in the moment, be present. What will it feel like? You will know when you
Mhm.
hit it. And I laugh because literally when you are concentrating or not concentrating, but it's quiet and you're with yourself and you are doing something, it comes to you
Yep.
and it's like a feeling you would never even know. And my first time that happened was vacuuming. I was at home vacuuming, and I love to vacuum. I will vacuum a house 20 times over. I feel like my energy, it helps me
Mhm.
blow off
Mhm.
things, and I'm just, I'm making lines, and I heard the voice. I turned off that vacuum cleaner. I said, wait, what? And at the time, I did not realize the magnitude of that moment,
Mm.
and had searched for that moment for so long after that, because I loved that moment. That moment, I know I heard the voice, but it's not something you can search.
Yeah.
You really have to go into yourself. You really have to retreat and be in the moment. And if you are not in the moment, it's very difficult to hear a voice. I'm not saying you won't. I'm not telling people how to hear a voice. That's just
Mhm. Mhm.
me. And listening to you, it seems like we've had a similar experience that way, where we're really in the moment. And that's really helpful. But I really like that you said I had to tear down my ways that I knew, or the belief system that people put in place unwittingly, lovingly,
Mhm.
and rebuild and do some research for myself, accept things for myself, and then move forward.
Mhm. Yes, so true. And it for me, when we talk about hearing that voice or being, I'm telling you, it really came from me just being present, just slowing down some. And so now I told you I have my little checklist, my little daily habits, because like I am a busybody, right? And so I will get lost in things and in tasks. And so I literally have this little checklist so that I can make sure that I'm doing things that protects me from just going and hitting brick walls. And so my husband, was home for 2 weeks. And so right outside of my house is this, this beautiful, I don't know what to call it, body of water. We have all these ducks and swan, and it's just so, it's turtles. And I go out there and walk like 3 times a day. And my husband's like, well, you claim you be busy all day, but every time I look up, you going for a walk. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I take those moments because it protects my mental health. Like, I take long hot baths it's a whole situation because it protects my mental health. I work out because it protects my mental health. I use my supplements, and I use CBD because like, I have all these things because I'm worth it. Right. And so the same energy that we give to everything else, I give it to me before I do anything now, because I know what that other side, and I know the power of my just caring for myself, nurturing myself. And that's when I talked about not knowing me, just falling in love. Like, I love April today, right? But I like, there was such a disconnect. I was so busy judging everything about April that wasn't good enough. I didn't look in the mirror and be like, "Oh, girl, you cute," like, or "Oh, good," or if it was superficial based on what I got on it. Now I just love me, right? And I love me unapologetically where I am today.
And that's so important because the journey that you took and all of the things you said, you went maybe in the wrong direction. I call it part of your life's path. And I believe it all just built up and made you who you were. But here's what I'm hearing though. You identified you didn't know yourself. You started on a path, you chiseled away at the things that you found through your counseling, through your meditation, through your studies with your Bible, to your journaling that you needed to address. And you began to kind of chisel away at some of the old. And I'm like really literally forming a mental picture as you talk. And I actually see you as the artist kind of chiseling away and becoming April, and this, masterpiece that you love. And it sounds like, and you did this journey, you got to this certain point, but prior to getting to this point, there were some things that you took care of that are significant, because I've gone to your page
Mhm.
and I saw your before and your after. And a lot of times people say, oh, there's a million before and afters out there. But I really looked at your before and after. I looked at your face. I looked in your eyes. I looked at, your posture before and after. And literally, you are a different April. And I hope that people visit your page, because if they could see that transformation, because when you talk about being a transformational coach, and how you had to take every piece of you and work on every piece. You couldn't just run on a treadmill and become April. You couldn't just, read a book only and become April. You had to really change your mindset. And it sounds like what I really like, which I wish you could kind of come through the screen and shake a little bit on me, is really being regimented. You have your list. You have your check marks that you make off. You have your affirmations. I'm another affirmation, they're everywhere, but you have everything. You really plan meticulously. You simultaneously were taking care of your mental. You were getting someone else to help you dump what you had inside. And then you became an April. And when you got to this point and you shed, and how many pounds did you shed?
Mm,
Would you
Depends on
say?
the day, somewhere between 60 and 70.
Okay. And I know you don't count. You just kind of, yes, I know you said you don't do numbers. It's not about numbers, but I think it's important for people who are still kind of at the numbers place and not having done the work that you have, and know that it isn't about the number. It really is about your mindset, that you tackle, that you have become not only a different person physically, but you have become a different person mentally. And then after you did that, you continue to educate yourself and then continue to serve in a mentorship capacity, creating programs for women. And the reason the women need to hear what you're saying today, not just women, men, there are men out there need to hear what you're saying, but women specifically, because that's what our community is for, you and I. And they need to hear that they are not alone, that although it can be done, it's not easy, it's a process. what did you say? You have to relearn, you have to find your answers, you have to look for clarity, you have to be present. They have to do the work. And that led me to, ask you, in your coaching and your transformational coaching, and the fact that you still want to be of service, even in your own journey and dealing with your own things, you want to help women. What do you think is the biggest obstacle, women have to overcome in order to, one, help themselves,
Mhm.
and or two, find someone like you who can help them really recognize that? I think where some of us are sleepwalking through life, I truly believe that we are sleepwalking through life, and we don't know that we are broken. We don't know that if we just tweaked a little bit of our mindset, it would all fall away. You know what I mean? What is the biggest obstacle you feel that the women are having to overcome to help themselves and reach out for help?
I think that many women know something's off. They may not, like, for me, I knew I had some stuff, but maybe not the stuff that I had. But I think many recognize it. However, I think that as women, I hear so many women say it's not worth the the way they've made it such a big thing. They overcomplicate it, that it becomes not worth what they think it would take. So for instance, like, we get women, because people try, oh, I don't want to spend the money, but you spend buku dollars on your hair and clothes. And I don't, hey, knock yourself out. But stop tricking yourself to say that it's about the money. It ain't about the money, because we spend money on what we want to spend money on. It's about what you think is tied to that money, right? So clothes, hair, they make you feel good. But when it comes to like investing in coaching or the health products and this, that, and the other, it feels like work, right? And we already got so many other things on our plate that something that feels like work just it's automatically complicated in their heads. For many women, when many women aren't living a terrible life, right? So if I looked at life, in general, like, I have lots to be proud of and thankful for. So sometimes I'm like, girl, why just mind your own business, work your job, collect your check, bill, because I could get by and feel happy about life. But if you really want to live a soulfully aligned life, and what I mean by that is just having the inner peace to know that job well done, right? So for me, I know my why. And for me, my why at the end of the day, I know and feel so passionately that my why is that I refuse to leave this earth and knowing, because when they talk about generational curses, we got to remember this. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So when you think about a generational curse, it's something that your kids just got just for being born to you.
Mm.
And so when I look at my bloodline and I can see alcohol, I can see drugs, I can see health issues, I see early death. That's what's in my bloodline. Like, I see
Mm.
it all over the place. So for me, I know that those are things that could follow my children. I'm willing to be the one to lose sleep, to have to learn till I die, to have to talk till I die, because I have to break that. I refuse to leave this earth just giving my kids that. And so that's why I'm always learning. I'm first one. I talk to my kids all day, every day, right? I talk to them about things. I talk to them about life and positioning it. I mean, just everything. I talk to them about the things that I've gone through. I've talked to my son. Well, your dad is he has alcohol in his bloodline. So do you know what that means for you? Do you know what this? I mean, I talk about it all. Like, I filed bankruptcy, but guess who else filed bankruptcy? My parents, right? And so
Mm.
I have a responsibility to make sure that yes, all roses and dandy today, right? My daughter she's a pharmacist. She makes great money. She has a 750 credit score, but I used to be there, right? So if I just can't assume there are things that are underlying issues that motivate me. And so for women, it's really knowing your why. It's about recognizing that you have an impact, right? You have a purpose. And so be very clear about the responsibility that you hold and be willing to do the work, because even though it feels heavy and it feels complicated, that's in the mind.
Now, you just saying that, do you feel that sometimes we as women don't get the work put the work in, or invest in the coaching, or invest in someone, the counseling or whatever, because there's a lack of worthiness attached to it, that deep down, am I worthy of becoming a better person? Am I worthy to feel that I am great? I have purpose. I am. Women, do we really feel, is worthiness attached to that?
We I'm gonna speak for myself, but I've had this with so many women where we start saying, and it's part guilt, part shame, part I'm not worthy. We'll be like, well, you know what? Who am I? I'm not supposed to want all of that. I should be just happy with this.
Mm.
We justify it because we see things around us to be proud of. We find pride in things we've done, and we feel that that other level, that's not for us. Because
Because
if it was meant to be, it would just be. Worst thing we were ever taught. I was thinking about this laying in my bed last night. That's
yes,
one of the worst things. If it's meant to be, it's just gonna be. No, it's not.
you got to put in the work,
You got to put in the work.
and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. I think that's the next thing I wanted to ask you, is that I know for me, and when you think of families and things like that, it's always, don't talk about that. That's family business or whatever, but it has affected you.
Oh,
It affects me. It affects the family. And when are we going to be okay with whatever has happened, whatever our story is? It's our story. It's okay. But we need to work to get past it and not have that shame and feel worthy, so that we can be free. And part of my platform was, I want to hear these stories, because I want to hear how women freed themselves,
yeah.
inspired themselves, were fearless. And I really feel that in all the things you talked about, like the generational curses and some of the things that you went through, it's because we were taught to suppress and not tell. And are we really worthy? And the only way we can get to that is if I tell. So I'm not gonna tell, so I'm gonna stay right where I am.
Yes. I gotta say this real quick. My son. So I just like the last few weeks. This I told you I've been journaling. I think it's gonna become a book. But so because I'll take myself through the same thing I work with my clients. And so I started like getting a little, I was having some emotional highs, just feeling like, okay, April, the old April would have just been marching through, but the April today is like, okay, check in. What's going on with you? You snapping off on people, you trigger happy, like, no, this is not. And so and I have that's the natural me, is that I'm ready. Like, and that comes from some old traumas that, I've been physically abused. So sometimes I'm like, when people say the wrong thing, or I will be ready to check you, because no, right? So those are things I pay attention to. So I'm journaling, and I have been emotional. And my son told me, Mom, now mind you, I have two kids. One of them is she just make her mama feel good about everything. But that PJ, God has gifted him with, he is extremely intuitive, that is scary, right? He can read people and situations so well that God uses him a lot. He's used him in the past to help me peel some layers, because he'll make me realize something. But I'm in a different phase of my journey. So he wanted to tell me, Mom, I need you to listen to me. You're being weak right now. You're being weak right now. This isn't you. And I went off on him because I'm like, listen, I know I listen to you a lot. I appreciate you sharing with me, but this right here, I got to go through by myself. I said, because I don't want to be strong right now. Now, me saying that, and I told him, doesn't mean that I'm a victim, even though I have been a victim. I could say that, like, I've been a victim, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like, I've been
mm-hmm.
a victim before. You can't take that away from me. Now, I'm not walking around with it on my chest, but don't like, I've been a victim, right? I've been in situations where I've been victimized.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be sad or upset right now, or let me, like, that's, don't tell me to be strong right now. I'm strong by nature. I'm gonna keep on. You knock me down, I'm getting up. I might these days want to stay down there for about 15, 30 seconds
Yeah.
so I could
Take a breath.
process and just let myself feel whatever I need to feel. I might
Yes.
not, but I'm going to. So I had to tell him, don't say that to me again. Like, do not, because you're about to make me mad, because I'm right now very protective of the fact that I get to feel how I need to feel before I move on. Like,
Sure.
don't tell me to be strong no more. And so I get really defensive about that because I know what that did to me. Those are the things. And so I am. So it's just like that new Christian syndrome. When people first become a Christian, they walk around, they beating people over the head with the Bible. I'm that new, like, it's certain things that are new for me. And so I'm like, oh no, like, I will set a boundary real strong because I still so it's a new space for me. I'm so aware of it
The
that
vulnerability.
I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm okay with my journey. Like, I'm gonna always be strong. But if I want to feel the emotion or know that what you said hurt my feelings, or you did this and that was wrong. Not because I tell my husband all the time, I'm not a robot. He like asked me the other day, what do you mean by that? I'm not made of steel. I have
Right.
emotions, and for so long I trained you to think that I was a robot.
Absolutely. What he's used to is that
What is
strong, strong, but
Yep,
the vulnerability that you are allowing yourself to experience and share right now is a different phase.
yep.
And so you have to let him know that, like, you know what, I know what I was, but this is how people become new as they peel the layers of the onion.
Because you have to retrain the people in your life. When I first was like really, really, I used to say this me first all the time, and this would offend my husband, because in his mind or my kids' minds, like, they're so used to me putting everybody else first.
Sure.
My husband's like, well, you being selfish. No, I'm not. I'm just taking the space. Like, I had to retrain them. Now they don't bother me. They know that I got my processes. And the other day when I was being moody, my husband was like, have you been going in that room? Because I got a little meditation. I think you need to go back in your meditation room or something. So, because I've now trained them, but now this whole new thing about me being just more emotional, like, now I'm having to retrain them. No, you're not going to say certain things to me and
That's
I'm just going to let
difficult.
it bounce off me anymore. Because no, it hurts my feelings. I'm not made of steel. And you're going to respect the things that are important to me. I'm not going to operate in the same, because I don't have to. I get to reinvent myself. I get to
Absolutely.
recognize, when I want to change, and I get to set boundaries for that. And that feels so good, right? Because I'm allowing myself to just be human.
Yes, yes. And I love that you started off talking about old April with all the walls. And as we talk and we get through the conversation, I've literally seen your layers peel, and how you're at a point now where vulnerability is okay with you. Not in a million years would have been okay for you down the line. And so I think that by telling your authentic story and, letting our listeners know, kind of walking us through this whole journey, and us listening to you tell some anecdotes and stories, so we could actually put an image to your journey and your walk. I feel like it will help someone say, you know what, in this area I could use some help, and I'm going to reach out. And I think that that was the goal, and that is the goal of not only our conversation here, but all of my conversation is, I need folks to see the commonalities that we all share. I need people to understand by listening to your story that they're not alone, that it's okay to be transparent, vulnerable. It's okay to reinvent yourself. You are worthy, and through your programs and services, you literally and authentically can help someone because you have experienced a great deal of what they're going through. And you continue to educate yourself so that you can stay ahead of it as a coach. And what also I liked is, as a coach, a fellow coach, um, we often have to go get coached, and we often are going through and we're talking to people. I can, think of times where I'm sitting talking to someone and they say something, I go, wow, okay, Dana. Now that is something, aha moment for them, but it's also an aha moment for me. And that's why it's so therapeutic for people who don't understand about coaching and thinking it's one way. It's never one way. It is always a two-way exchange. It is always a learning experience. And by us coaching, it helps us be a better coach for the next person. But we always strive to um, leave people better than they were. And so I just appreciate the nuggets that you shared with me today. I feel like there's so much more that we could explore, but what I really like is for people to get to know the person, and then they can go out and they can reach you on your Facebook and your Instagram, and watch your stories, as I do many days, for inspiration. But I needed them to know that you are quite the servant leader, that if they were ever in doubt of that, you have the experience to help them, and that you will be transparent and that you will be authentic. I think today they've seen that you are ready and you are a true servant leader. I want you to, because one thing that stuck out in this is that as a mom, and I know we didn't delve into everything um, that we talked about, but that's the tickler. Now, if somebody wants to know more, they can contact April. But one thing that I picked out is that you are a proud mom, at that you know that before you leave this earth, you want to change things and make things better, and you want your kids to be able to live a life of being free, basically, and understanding their worth. And I want you to tell me, because you said your daughter is, a pharmacist, and she is living a good life, but you said your son's an athlete. And so, because I want to conjure up some followers and fans for him, we want to cheer him on. Where next can we see your son? Go ahead and make the announcement. Tell us all about your baby boy and where we can watch and follow him.
Absolutely. My PJ, my baby. PJ will be playing at the University of Central Florida. So he will be leaving in about a month.
Woo-hoo.
So he'll be playing Division I basketball there. And I'm just so extremely proud of him. And yeah, so he's PJ Edwards. If you Google him, like a lot of stuff comes up for him
Awesome.
for basketball. And yeah, we take all the love and support that you
And
want to send his way.
we will definitely support. And PJ, congrats on accomplishing something that many don't, and that means that he put the work in, and that the work ethic you installed in both your daughter and your son, both successful, both in different paths, is a testament to, I always say, like, you were younger and we do all these things and sometimes we can't see the sun, and I feel like our kids are that sunlight, and you have gotten through so many things, and you continue to be a voice for women and a voice for youth, because there's a thread of mentoring in everything you do. But your son is the fact that you have gotten your kids to this far, and they can stand on their 2 feet, and that's always, to me, the icing on the cake. And so today, in closing, what message would you leave for the listeners? We know about that we can reach you at I am Aprill with 2 L's Edwards on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, there's no S at the end of April, at the end of Edwards. So I am Aprill Edwards on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, minus the S. So please check her out. And what are some words you want to leave the listeners with today?
Yes. So the name of your podcast is Fearless, Inspired, and Free. And those three words embody so very much of what I believe and stand for is that I'm fearless, right? And fear, people say fear and faith can't exist in the same space, but they can, right? Because our faith continues to grow. So just keep showing up for yourself no matter what. Be inspired and be encouraged that you can be, do, or have anything that you can think, dream, or imagine. But we have to show up and we have to do the work and then trust that God will do his part because that is what freedom ultimately is. Freedom is not when we're no longer shackled to our past. Freedom is when we have a clear understanding of what our purpose here is and that we work to fulfill that purpose and that we feel fully aligned with what we were called on this earth to do, right? And so that's when we begin to feel free. And society is setting a whole different expectation for what freedom looks like, but we have to break beyond that and really get within ourselves to determine what is it that we want, get super clear on our why. I feel like people all the time say they know their why. That was me for many years. And I really, really got deep and got a deep, passionate, convicted why in the last year. And so I just challenge people to really get clear on that. Because if you don't have the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people shall, I don't know the exact perish. Okay. And so a vision comes from understanding your why, because from that you can road map and get very, very clear on what you're really supposed to be doing with life and in life. And so don't be the person that's just letting life guide you. Many of us do, right? I was there for many, many years. Be intentional so that you can live your best, most bold, most intentional life. And you can walk away feeling like you left something behind that you can definitely be proud of.
Well, April, no truer words. I really, really appreciate your time. I'm sure that my listening community is really going to not only identify, but really learn from our conversation today, your openness, your authenticity, your transparency. And the big thing I picked up from you in just the last 30 seconds is freedom is when we are no longer shackled to our past. And your ability to peel the layers so that you can live is very inspiring. So thank you so much for tuning in and talking to me today and chiming in. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I will continue to be watching and we'll be in contact because there's some follow-up that I'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Very honored.